525,600 minutes, 525,000 moments, oh dear. 525,600 minutes.
The high school that I would have gone to in my area, it was a good school and it was a good area, but they just didn't offer a lot of things that I was looking for. And then one day I was playing football in 8th grade, and one of the coaches from a high school I'd never heard of approached my parents and asked if I would be interested in coming to play for their high school. What I didn't realize is that a lot of those kids who went to the school were very wealthy. I had grown up in what I thought was a very rich environment, rich of experiences and rich in love and rich in a lot of other things, but not necessarily monetarily rich. And in order to go to that school, I had to do what was called work study. And work study is essentially that in exchange for part of your scholarship, you agreed to sweep floors after school. And so while a lot of the kids were wrapping up school and getting into their cars and driving home, I had to grab a broom or a mop or a paintbrush and work after school. After I would play sports at night, I would take the bus home, and I wouldn't get home till about 5 or 6 o'clock at night, and I'd go to work, and I'd work typically from 6 or 6:30 or 7 till 1 o'clock in the morning. And then the tough part about that was I lived 2 hours from where the high school was, and the only way I could get there was to take a bus because my parents only had one car and they couldn't drive me because it was far away. So I had to actually, after going to sleep at 1:30 or 2 in the morning, wake up at 5 o'clock every morning in order to take a bus and head to school for a 2-hour ride.
Why did you choose to go to the college that you did?
So as I was starting my senior year in high school, I had said before that I was always interested in sports and art. And as you can imagine, the two of those things don't usually go hand in hand.
I met Doug in October of 1985, and we dated all the way through our senior year of high school. Although we were at different schools and we lived 45 minutes apart, we were able to see each other probably once a weekend.
And so I also pursued some of the art schools, and one of the art schools I went to was a school in St. Louis called Washington University that had one of the best art programs and also a smaller football program. So after being recruited and doing all those things, I really decided that I wanted to pursue art equally with football. And so I ended up choosing WashU because they were able to not just provide the opportunities from both of those things, but because my parents didn't really have the means to send me to a school like that, they also afforded me the opportunity to have an academic scholarship and an art scholarship and a football scholarship, which ended up paying for about half of my school. And then similarly, I also had to do work study and other things in college.
We continued to date until college started in the fall of 1986. At that point, we went to separate colleges, and Doug went to Washington University in St. Louis, and I went to Missouri State in Springfield, Missouri.
When I got to WashU, I entered the art program, and I was just blown away by all the opportunities and all the things I could do. I thought when I entered school, though, I would be an art major and sort of I guess I didn't really know exactly, but I thought maybe I would be a fine artist, like a painter or draw or things like that, because that's really all I knew going into that point. But what I discovered is I really still enjoy the competitiveness of sports, and I started 4 years on the football team and had a great experience with that. So I started to take business classes, and all those worlds kind of collided in where my profession ultimately went, which was in marketing. I first started working in the art museum at the university, and then through that I got a job first at a company called McDonnell Douglas, which is now Boeing, in their graphic arts department my sophomore year. And then my junior year I worked at an agency called Darcy, which was the biggest agency in St. Louis at the time, and they did work for Mars, Candy, and Bud Light and things like that. And so I got to have some practical experience as an intern. And then by my senior year, because I had been doing it for so long, I got a job at an agency called TBWA as a full-time job while I was also going to school, which really helped make me a great candidate once I graduated from college, which turned out to be really very, very helpful, because right when I graduated was when the Gulf War broke out, but it was a really tough time to get a job, and so having that experience really separated me from the other people I was competing against, and I was fortunate after about 6 months to get a job in Chicago.
Doug moved from St. Louis to Chicago in June, and came here to Chicago to start his first job in advertising. And I remained in St. Louis because I also had a job teaching, and we were not engaged nor married yet, so we knew that we needed to just continue our relationship long distance.
So when I moved to Chicago, I didn't know a soul, and so originally I lived with my grandparents who lived outside Chicago, where we live now in Arlington Heights. So I lived with them, and I worked in the city at an agency called J. Walter Thompson, which was this enormous, like really famous agency. 800 people worked there, and as I mentioned previously, it was a time where it was the end of Gulf War, and a lot of people were being laid off, and so I came into a very kind of challenging situation. But it was great for me because I was able to really get a lot of opportunities I wouldn't have gotten otherwise. So I kind of climbed through the ranks at J. Walter Thompson. I got to travel the world. I got to make TV commercials and radio, and start on the internet and work for lots of really awesome brands. But eventually, in 2003, about a year after 9/11 and the dot-com bust, I got laid off, which is something that never happened. I was always on sort of a meteoric rise within the company.
So the day Doug came home or called me and told me that he had just lost his job at the company he had been working for 11 years, it was a bit of a shock for us. We were not only getting ready to start an addition on our home, but shortly thereafter, but I was also pregnant with our third child, Clayton, and newly pregnant. So it was a very difficult time. It was very stressful.
Did you ever want to give up, and if so, what made you keep going?
I've been asked during those times when I had some setbacks if I ever wanted to give up. And I guess the honest answer is I've kind of always been challenged in my life, so I never really ever think about giving up. But luckily I'd made a lot of friends along the way, and I was able to do something that's called freelance for about 6 months, which is basically just being a contractor and working for a lot of other companies. And I landed at another company called Bagby, which was another really awesome experience. It was a private company. We did amazing things there. We ended up winning the Sony Global account. We won a lot of other business. But as you guys probably know through history, there was another recession that happened in 2009. And right ahead from that, I ended up moving to the company where I was at now right before that company went bankrupt. And I was able to bring over a lot of my team from Bagby to my company where I'm at now, which is called Gyro. And when I started with Gyro, it was a small company in Chicago and had a couple other offices. And myself, with a lot of my friends who I worked with along the way, were able to build that company up. And now it's about 100 people in 16 offices. And I'm blessed to be able to run the Chicago office and the Denver office, and also be responsible for the global creative, which has been just amazingly fun, and I look forward to doing it every day.